Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 654. Prisoner and Guard. No way. I haven't gone anywhere. Has the far-reaching hands of trouble come on its own? Klein revealed a grimace that didn't match Gehrman Sparrow's persona. He nearly drew a gasp. The only thing stopping him from doing that was because it would cause quite a stir, making trouble discover his hiding spot. No longer a green nighthawk, he rapidly made up his mind. He held his breath, slowly stood up, and moved to the side of the metal gate, without a sound. He secretly and silently looked in the direction of the incoming footsteps. He believed that, since hiding and avoiding it wasn't necessarily useful, he had to determine the danger revolving around the situation so as to make the best choice. The two miniature suns in his eyes dimmed as Klein waited for nearly a minute as he heard the footsteps turn heavier and clearer. Following that, he heard the clanking sound of a metallic gate slamming into the wall. Following that, he saw a towering figure appear on the right of the corridor. The figure was nearly 2.5 meters tall and wore black, full-body armor. The cold feeling it exuded seemed corporeal, like a gigantic knight. His aura was converged, and he was stayed like the deep sea. In the space where his eyes were, there were two deep red glows that flickered. In his hand was a long and broad black sword. Creak! He pushed open the metal gate to a cell and stepped in. He circled the cell, seemingly in search of something. Man! Is he trying to find a particular prisoner? I'll definitely be discovered if this continues. Klein hesitated for a moment, and wondered if he should leave the cell and search for a way out before the figure came close, or to sneak an attack to finish the target in a clean swoop before continuing to huddle in a corner to await the end of the dream. After judging how much time he had left to think, Klein quickly took off the topaz pendant on his left wrist and began divining with a voice that perhaps only he could hear. That knight from before is very strong. After quickly repeating it 7 times, Klein opened his eyes to see the topaz pendant turning clockwise at a high frequency and large amplitudes. This meant that the target was an extremely dangerous existence. Without any hesitation or time to hesitate, Klein used the beyonder powers of a clown and controlled his muscles to pull open the metal gates without causing any additional stimulation. Then, he took the opportunity when the black-armored entity entered another cell, to gently walk out into the corridor and rapidly headed left with his body crouched. In the immense darkness, as he listened for any commotion behind him, he maintained his stealthy and swift motions, quickly making a bend and arriving at a metal gate which opened outwards. It looked like an exit. Attempting to push and pull, Klein discovered that the metal gates weren't heavy, but it had been locked. After 2 seconds of thought, he took out the key he picked up inside his cell, inserted it, and twisted it without holding out much hope. A light click of a latch opening sounded as the metal gates unlocked. That works? Although it's a dream, you can't just have a randomly picked up key be an important item. I originally planned on folding some paper to insert into the keyhole and repeatedly slice at it, bit by bit. Klein slowly pushed open the door as he lampooned while thinking in puzzlement. To his disappointment, what stood behind the metal gates wasn't the exit but a hall filled with junk. Closing the gate behind him and passing, he locked it again and circled around the items randomly strewn around, in search of a possible door or path. A few seconds later, he noticed an inconspicuous black wooden door in a corner. Therefore, he carefully approached it and reached out for the handle. The scene inside naturally appeared in his mind. It was a storage room, and on the right was a full-body mirror. And to its right was a figure wearing a short linen robe. There's someone there? The escaped prisoner? Having been forced to leave his comfort zone, Klein decided to take hold of the initiative in a limited fashion. Therefore, he gently twisted the handle and pushed open the black wooden door. He wanted to gather information on the general situation, so as to determine where to engage in combat or flee at the critical moment in time. Who is it? The figure wearing a short linen robe hurriedly but softly asked. Its voice was filled with despair and pain. An adventurer, Klein succinctly answered. He had already used his night vision to discern the figure's looks. It was a man with a weathered face. He had wrinkles on his forehead and the corners of his eyes and mouth, but his hair was raven black and lustrous. There wasn't a single strand of gray hair. His short linen robe was ancient and simple. His expression was distorted due to the pain. His rarely seen pure black eyes were filled with unconcealed surprise and puzzlement. Adventurer? Why would you be here? Klein maintained a certain distance from the man who was difficult to discern whether he was considered young or old. He stood by the entrance and looked at him. Before asking others, introducing yourself is a necessary form of politeness. As a faceless, just the short act of sizing him up from before had made him grasp the man's features. Apart from the discordant hair and the wrinkles, he had an old, gruesome scar on his cheek. The man was startled as he worriedly glanced at the hall. It's best you close the door. We cannot be caught by that devil, otherwise. The muscles on his face clearly twitched as though he had recalled something nasty. Devil? Klein murmured and extended his hand back to close the black wooden door. The man heaved a sigh of relief and smiled wryly. I apologize. I was indeed impolite. My name is Leo Master, an ascetic of a religious organization. A religious organization? From the looks of it, you aren't a devotee of any of the 7 deities. Klein discovered a problem with his choice of words. If he was an ascetic of one of the 7 deities, he could have directly said it out loud. Even the high priest of the Church of Sun and the bishops of the Church of Storms wouldn't come to blows the moment they met in such a dangerous place. Leo Master said with a self-deprecating laugh. That's right. I worship the original creator. He is an omnipotent and omniscient existence, the source of everything great. He is the beginning and the end. He is the God of all gods. Upon hearing how this person revered the original creator, Klein's first reaction was that it was the Twilight Hermit Order. However, there are also some smaller denominations in the northern and southern continents. There's quite a number of people who believe in the original creator. Klein deliberated as he asked, What's the name of that religious organization? How did you end up here? Leo Master hesitated for a moment before saying, To the far east of the Sonia Sea is where my lord sleeps. His sacred mountain is hidden somewhere there. I led a pilgrimage here in an attempt to witness his miracles to redeem myself. Perhaps it's a necessary test. We were caught by that devil, and one by one we died. Later, I seized the opportunity to escape the cell and hid here, awaiting the devil's departure. Klein thought for a moment before saying, Do you know the name of that devil? What characteristics does he have? He? Leo Master shook his head, saying in a somewhat puzzled manner, I do not know his exact name, but many pilgrims seem to know him. They call him the Saint of Darkness. Saint of Darkness? A demigod? Is this Leo Master's dream, or is it the demigod's dream? From the outcome of my divination, it's likely the latter. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that dangerous. Klein was about to continue asking which organization Leo Master was from and determine the beyonder powers of the Saint of Darkness when he suddenly noticed the full-body mirror opposite the ascetic through the corner of his eye. In mysticism, mirrors were passages that connected hidden and unknown worlds. It easily brought about terrifying accidents. Therefore, Klein, who was in a dangerous dream, carefully walked over and planned on using the powers of a priest of light to destroy the item. No, don't! Leo Master seemed to sense Klein's intention as he cried out softly in horror. Without it, I will immediately die. Ah? Klein looked at the mirror again in puzzlement. Although the environment was abnormally dark, the mirror clearly reflected 2 figures. One of them was Leo Master with his numerous wrinkles and raven black hair. The other was the thin-faced, black-haired and brown-eyed Gehrman Sparrow who wore a cap. At this moment, the Gehrman Sparrow in the mirror slowly moved his head even though Klein didn't make any movements. He revealed a deep, sinister smile towards him. The mirror's surface suddenly rippled as a hand reached out. With just the blinking of his eyes, the Gehrman Sparrow, who looked identical to him, crawled out of the mirror. His face was tainted with an obvious sinisterness due to the darkness cloaking it. How terrifying! Unfortunately, I don't look like Gehrman Sparrow, therefore, you failed to scare me. If Shou Mingray came out of the mirror, I might have been woken up out of fright. Klein calmly looked at his counterpart, and raised his left hand, which swirled with a layer of sunlight. The sinister German sparrow smiled as he raised his left hand as well, making a darkness that was made up of magnificence and sinisterness surface on his glove. This corresponded to the powers of a baron of corruption. My clone? Klein thought as he raised his right hand expressionlessly. From out of nowhere, he held a short milky white scepter in his palm, and at its tip were embedded blue gems. See God's scepter. Although his actions in a dream needed to abide by logic in order to achieve the desired effects, Klein suspected that the illusory world was unable to influence the mysterious space or the gray fog. Therefore, he attempted to simplify the ritualistic process and told himself that the sea god's scepter was stored in a similar unique zone in the spirit world. He could retrieve it whenever he wanted. The outcome from his attempt delighted Klein. Indeed, the dream world was unable to differentiate between a unique zone in the spirit world and the space above the gray fog. With the premise of the sea god's scepter belonging to him, this sealed artifact at the demigod level was retrieved. It really works. Otherwise, I'd have to engage in an intense battle. Klein secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He similarly believed that the mirror was unable to replicate matters related to the gray fog. The sinister German sparrow looked opposite him in a dazed state. He instinctively raised his hand, but his right palm was empty. Then, he saw countless bolts of silver lightning shoot out, enveloping him inside, causing him to expend one paper figurine substitute after another without being able to escape from the area. With a sizzling sound, a huge ball of lightning illuminated the cramped room, which provided no room for dodging. Following that, the German sparrow from the mirror vanished. For some reason, Klein felt himself immediately turn serene, as though he had become a sage. He turned his head and looked at Leo Master again. What's the name of the religious organization you joined? Leo Master trembled as he answered. Aurora Order. Aurora Order? Klein was stunned as he couldn't help but prick up his brows. At this moment, there was a loud clanking outside. The locked gates that opened outwards had seemed to have been kicked open. Thump! 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 The heavy footsteps that sounded like drumming walked towards the corner, seemingly discovering where Klein and Leo Master were hiding. Klein suspected that the lightning storm from before had been sensed by the Saint of Darkness. There's no way of hiding. Klein held the sea god's scepter and kicked the black wooden door of the storage room open towards the Saint of Darkness. As the door tumbled, he clearly saw his target's appearance. The knight, who was wearing black full-body armor, had already raised up his visor at some point in time, revealing his deep wrinkled face and some of his bright raven black hair, as well as the old scar on his cheek. He looked identical to Leo Master. Even the minute features were identical. The only difference was the deep redness that emitted from his eyes.